Welcome everybody to the Crazy Sasquatch Show. Today we're going to do a little the Bears talk with the Crazy Sasquatch and Flaming Spikes. So we're going to do the offense, do an episode on the offense, and then we may do a defensive episode. So first offense, we got a little question and answer. There's a lot of questions on the Bears. We're going to talk about like who's going to be the starting cornerback, what wide receiver is going to stand out, running backs, what tight end's going to do better, commit Graham. We'll start with one I got on the board for the Flaming Spikes here. Starting quarterback at the beginning of the season. Who do you think is going to be the starting quarterback?
So it's either against Foles or Trubisky. Trubisky has been in there for longer. Foles last year he didn't do that good, but neither did Aaron Rodgers when he broke his collarbone. But both of them are very good quarterbacks. But Trubisky's been there longer. There's no preseason. He's already been practicing with his wide receivers and tight ends before Foles did. Trubisky also was in a program called Spear, which trained Patrick Mahomes and Jimmy Graham. So I think it's an obvious answer that it's Trubisky winning the job.
Okay, I kind of agree. I think Trubisky's going to win the job because he's been there. He knows the Bears' offense. Foles also knows this offensive scheme from playing elsewhere. So I know Foles knows the scheme. From what I'm hearing from camp, Foles is throwing the ball pretty well. The wide receivers are somewhat impressed with him. But I do agree, Trubisky will probably be the starter in week one. I think he'll probably have a pretty short leash, though, guys. If he makes a couple mistakes, I think Foles is going to be right in there pretty quickly. So I agree with Flaming Spikes. First is going to be Trubisky starting week one, and then it depends how he does of how they go forward with Foles and Trubisky at the quarterback position.
And Trubisky has that running factor that Foles doesn't have. My first question for you is, will the starting quarterback have more or less than 24 touchdowns? So you say Trubisky, so will Trubisky in 2020 have more or less than 24 touchdowns, which that was his same touchdown numbers in 2018?
I think so. I think as long as he stays healthy. But last year he was injured. He played half the year with a badly injured shoulder. You know, any quarterback that plays with injury, they're afraid to get hit. They're a little tentative. Going into quarterback controversy, not quarterback controversy, quarterback competition. I think he's going to prove himself. I think he's going to throw. I think with Robinson, Miller, Commit now, and Graham, he's got some go-to guys. I believe, yes, I think he'll have over 24 touchdowns this year.
Okay, and my answer to that is yes, if their offensive line plays average this year. Last year they didn't play good. In my opinion, they had the worst offensive line in football last year. This year they got Ifedi from the Seattle Seahawks. I think they're talking about, I can't think of the name, but they said someone like ate the Hawk because he was so big. He was like had tons of muscle. I think he was a rookie last year. The year before that, he was an offensive lineman, but he looks more like a tight end. So if he looks how he plays and they play average, Trubisky will no doubt have more than 24 touchdowns. If their offensive line plays like last year, which I think they're going to be slightly better, if not way better, but if they play the same as that, I don't think so. He may have like one less than 24.
Okay, my next question. I've been hearing some rumors that Cordell Patterson is practicing with the Bears running backs. Is Patterson going to be more of a running back this year with Montgomery and Cohn in the backfield and all? Or, I mean, are they going to use him wide receiver? Personally, I'll answer, then I'll give my little tidbit in.
So I really only would switch him to running back if one of the starting running backs gets injured, like Tariq Cohen or David Montgomery. Especially if David Montgomery gets injured, you're definitely switching Cordell Patterson to running back. I think he played a little bit of running back last year, and I think he played running back in college. I may be wrong with that though. So he should be a running back if one of their starting running backs gets injured.
I think he's going to be more of a running back. I think with their wide receiver ranges, with Robinson, Miller, Cordell Patterson, again Jr. I like Riley Ridley. You get 5 or 6 quality wide receivers here. Patterson may be more as a weapon as a running back with his speed, his big body style. It might be a nice change of pace from a Montgomery and Cohen of some more trickery, guys. 2018 Bears had some trick plays in there throwing to offensive linemen, and I think they're going to start using Cohen and Patterson to some more of those catch a defense off guard type plays. So that's my answer to that question.
My question to you is: will Dave Montgomery have more or less than 1,200 yards?
I would say more. Montgomery came in weighing the same at camp this year, but like 5% less body fat. He's toned up. Not a rookie anymore. Kind of knows what he's getting into. Hopefully a little better offensive line. I think between Graham and Kmet as tight ends, if they can block for him a little bit on that offensive line, I see Montgomery having a big year, guys. I really like the kid. He's tough, very powerful runner. He almost had 1,000 yards last year behind a very poor line, I guess hard to say a poor offense, but not a very high scoring offense. But he almost had it there. I think he's going to bypass it easily this year.
Unless the main problem with the Bears is the offensive line. That's going to factor in a lot, especially this question. David Montgomery, no doubt, would have over 1,000 yards, but 1,200. It's like when I said if Trubisky is going to have more or less than 24 touchdowns, it matters on the offensive line. If they play average, absolutely he's going to have 1,200 yards. But if they play poorly like they did last year, he is going to break 1,000 yards, but he isn't going to pass 1,200 yards. So my prediction is they are going to play average, so I do think they'll pass that number.
Okay. My next question is Graham or Kmet. I mean, you had Burton on your team the last couple of years. He'd been banged up and never really turned into what he could be. Shaheen, some of these other tight ends never really got into what their potential. Now you bring in Graham, a veteran. You bring in Kmet, which is a rookie, very highly thought after rookie. I mean, they compare him to like Gronkowski and stuff like that. They say he's picking up the playbook really well. Who's going to have more touchdowns? Who's going to be the shining tight end on this team? Do you think it's going to be Graham or Kmet's going to be the one that's going to have more touchdowns and more receiving yards this year?
Well, if you're talking about who's going to start more or who's going to start the first, I think it's Graham for the first 5 weeks. But the most touchdowns, I think it's going to be probably Graham because he's a veteran. He's going to start the first 5 weeks. Then Kmet maybe in the first spot for their tight ends, and then he may get the start for the next weeks 6 through 17. But for the first 5 weeks, I think Graham will rack up a lot of touchdowns in the end zone. And with good leaders like Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, which used to be his quarterbacks he played with, he was very good. People are saying he's one of the best tight ends, but with bad leadership as quarterback, like Aaron Rodgers, he did poorly. He was just getting bad throws to him, and he wasn't really getting passed to a lot because their wide receivers getting passed to. But Graham, I think he will have more touchdowns because they have good leaders on the offense.
Okay, and one other thing I want to throw in is that Nagy came from like a Kansas City type of offense where you have a Kelsey. Bears, I think they tried to do that. That's the reason the Bears had so many tight ends there the last couple of years, trying to get a couple tight ends that would stand out, that they could run that offense like a Kansas City type of offense of having that tight end out there. I think with Kmet and Graham, they're close to that. If they can have the deep wide receivers, the close in tight ends, big guys, it could be a very deadly offense. You know, you can get Kmet and Graham both sides of that offensive line. You don't know who you're throwing it to. Big guys can catch or block. It could be a good offense, guys.
I'm going to change my question up a little bit, but will Allen Robinson have more or less than 12 touchdowns?
12. Went from 10 to 12. I'm hearing a lot of people say he could be a top 10 wide receiver this year. If Trubisky's having a good year, I mean, think about it. He had 1,000 yards last year, guys. I don't remember how many touchdowns. Maybe you know how many touchdowns Robinson had last year. But he had over 1,000 yards receiving, and they said a very bad offense. What can he do with a good offense where there's more targets? He can go get double, triple teamed. Other receivers, tight ends out there catching the ball. 10 or 12, 10 I would say yes, 12 is going to be pushing. I think he can, but I think with the tight ends and the running backs they have, it's going to be really close. I think he can do it, but I think they have enough other weapons where they're not going to focus on one guy. Which is good for a Bears team of not having all their focus on one wide receiver. You're going to have focus on other receivers and other running backs that can do really well. So I would say yes, he could get 12, but it's gonna be close.
And my answer to that is I switched it from 10 to 12 because 10 would be no doubt he would have 10 touchdowns by the end of the year, but 12 in the end zone it's definitely gonna be the tight ends or Dave Montgomery. Well, the tight ends or the running backs in the end zone. In the middle of the field is probably going to be Allen Robinson by their end zone, probably Dave Montgomery. So the only spots he is going to get thrown to is going to be the middle of the field or anywhere between. Maybe he's going to get a few passes in the end zone, but I do think he will exactly have 12 touchdowns by the end of the year. I think he can make it, and I think he will get a lot of big plays this year because he's not. Last year they did have Taylor Gabriel and Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller was injured most of the time, so Allen Robinson was getting double teamed most of the time. Now they have Tedden Jr., second year with Riley Ridley and Javon Wims, so I don't think anyone's going to be double teamed. If they are, the other person's going to get thrown to for a touchdown.
Okay, my next question is starting wide receivers. Who do you think is going to be the starting wide receivers on the Bears team this year?
For number 1, definitely Allen Robinson. Number 2, probably Tedden Jr. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. But then probably 3rd, Anthony Miller.
Okay. Mine's going to change up a little bit. I like Allen Robinson definitely as number 1. They said Anthony Miller could have a breakout year this year. I guess they kind of held him back a little bit last year because of injury. Hopefully they'll just let him go this year. Coming out of the slot, I do have Tedden Jr. coming out of the slot. Backing up Miller, I see a lot of stats. They got Cordell Patterson. They bring Cordell Patterson into more of the running back range. I like Riley Ridley stepping into that. He's a big guy. His brother Calvin Ridley, heck of a player for the Atlanta Falcons. I really do like Riley Ridley. And Mooney, their draft pick, they're saying Robinson's even giving him comments of his speed. So I think it might be a while because of no preseason games, but Mooney maybe by halfway through the season. Mooney maybe. I don't know, if Ginn gets hurt, Mooney could be the slot receiver. That'd be a very speedy guy coming out of the slot. So that's my starting.
And my final question is, will the Bears have a top 15 offense in 2020?
I'd say yes. I think with a beefier, stronger Montgomery, with Cohen, you get that running backfield good, an offensive line that can do some blocking. The tight ends they have there now, they can help block and catch. This group of wide receivers I think, be very deadly. If Trubisky falters, last year Daniels really didn't do a really great job managing the game. Foles he's been to Super Bowl before. I think you got the talent there to do a lot with this team if things go right. You get some good play calling.
I do think they will have a top 15 offense this year if their offensive line plays average. Like, every single question I ask, it really heavily, if their offensive line plays average, yes to all these questions, but if they play poorly, no to all these questions. But in 2020, a lot of players are opting out. Bears offense is going to be, I think, better this year, no matter what quarterback Foles or Trubisky. Foles, I think, is more accurate, but Trubisky makes up his accuracy for his running ability, and he got training from Spear, but they said he made tremendous gains. But top 15 offense, I think that's definitely possible. I think they will have it even if they have below average offensive line play.
And my last quick question. They just dropped their other kicker. So right now, Panero is the only kicker on the team. Do you think he'll be their 2020 kicker?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's our offense, guys. Like I said, subscribe to our channels. We'll add each other's channels in our comments. Other than that, here's our Bears predictions for this year. Ask us any other questions. We can do another episode with Bears. Stay tuned for the defense one. That crazy Sasquatch, Flaming Spikes, out.